This is the Truth Seeker, and this is the continuing series on the Council of the Gods from a response from a conservative / orthodox point of view. And beginning this next series of videos, I'm going to be covering the title L from the Strong's Concordance. And just to give you an idea of what I'm working off of here, I'm working off of Strong's number H410. On the King James Version translation count, we have 245 occurrences of the title L within the Hebrew Scriptures. And we're going to be getting into all the various usages of L. I'm not going to be covering names that end in L in this section because those are a bit different than the use of L by itself. So we look at the definitions given, and we're going to go over these definitions and some of the reasons why L has been translated as mighty or strength or power. And again, in the King James Version, we have 235 verses in the Hebrew Concordance, but we have 245 times that L appears. So in some of the verses, L appears twice, or in one case, I believe 3 times. And so the reason that we're going over the naming of, or the various usages of L, is to pretty much verify the usage in the Hebrew language. Pretty much solidify its usage in the Hebrew language. And in that analysis, I tried to make a strong case for the fact that L is utilized a unique way in the Hebrew that is not utilized in the Ugaritic. So I'm going to be also changing up the format a bit. In the past, I've done very long, exhaustive videos. But now I'm going to try to keep my videos to 30 minutes each. And so I guess, where do we start? I guess we start at the beginning, because that's a very good place to start. And so in looking, I'm using the Blue Letter Bible website, because that one just has a very good module to read the Hebrew, and with the Masoretic text translation. And so the first occurrence we see is in Genesis 14, verse 18. Okay, and this begins the story of Melchizedek, king of Salem. And So what I did was I put everything in a spreadsheet format. And what I'll do is create this as a shared document. If you want to click on it, I'll put the link in the description. And if you find mistakes or things that need to be noted, by all means, send me an email at my email, which I'll list below. And we'll get those mistakes fixed. But I think this is going to be a valuable tool for us lay people that are very interested in these matters. So what we have here is, actually I have a count of 247 occurrences because I started to come across a couple other occurrences of L, but I decided to leave out the ones for the town of Bethel or Bethel. And if you're looking at there's like 66 occurrences of those just by themselves. And it's just in reference to a town or a region, but I did put a couple of those in this mix just so we could look at them. And also, I did come across another occurrence that I felt I wanted to include, even though it is not part of the Strong's Concordance number H410 for the title L, but in my opinion it should have been in there. And again, if any of you are reviewing these and you have others that are not included in Strong's Concordance, by all means contact me and let me know. And so beginning in Genesis, so the reason, let me just say this, the reason I put this in a spreadsheet format and I took the time to highlight the area that in English that is being looked at, and then I give you the transliteration in one column and the Hebrew in another column and the translation in another column. I note the God titles or words that are in the same verse, the compound, if there's a compound such as in this one, it's Elyon, for the title Most High God, Elyon. So that would be the compound. So that way I can note all the variances of those that have compounds and those that do not. And then of course I put the link to the interlinear, which we're going to be using throughout this whole video series as we examine the Hebrew in each case. And then a comment if I have a comment there. And I started to put in notes for context. One of the other things I wanted to do was start to note conservative dates and critical dates, for approximate dates regarding each scripture occurrence. But that is a little bit beyond the scope of this, but it is something that would be helpful in comparing the Ugaritic occurrences to those in the Hebrew scriptures. So, it's an ongoing thing that I had to cut off at one point, and I just said, okay, we're not going to do the dates in this section here because then this is going to be quite a lot of work. And it already has taken me quite a long time to compile these 247 occurrences of the title L. And, I saw that it was doable. It was definitely a lot, but it was doable. And so I felt that it was important to cover this and gain a better understanding of the title L in the Jewish scriptures. And also, I wanted to point out that this is a lower number than, like, let's say, the title of God, Yud He Vav He, which is some, like maybe 6,000 occurrences in the Jewish scriptures. That would have been, even much, much longer of a study for me. And as it is this, I have been working on and off on this project for over 2 years, compiling these just whenever I have a chance. And so this video series has kind of come to a respite or a pause, but now is going to be pretty much fully encompassed with the title L throughout, this complete review of Strong's Concordance number H410. So who would be interested in watching something like this? Well, if you're interested in the Hebrew, you'll be interested in watching this, because I'm not just going to be talking about the title L, but I'm also going to be referencing the other Hebrew words in this. And not that I am a Hebrew scholar, because I am by no means a Hebrew scholar, but I have been picking up a little bit of the Hebrew. And so if you're just interested in, learning a little bit, and you have a little bit of knowledge, just like I do, I have a little bit of knowledge, but I want to share that. So you could gain a lot by just listening and picking up some different Hebrew words from the Jewish scriptures. Who else would like to watch this? Well, if you're interested in the title L, and you're interested in what my thoughts are about it in relation to modern hypercritical studies with regard to Canaanite culture, you might be interested in watching this series. So again, I'm going to try to keep these videos to 30 minutes, so as not to belabor or tire out the listener. So this should be, excuse me, a good drive time video. If you're in your car, you pop it in and listen to it on the way to work or on the way home. So let's start with Genesis chapter 14, verse 18. The King James Version reads, "And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God." And in the Hebrew, transliteration is Le'el, Elyon. If you're driving, you can't see what it looks like, but if you're watching the video, you can see the Hebrew here, Le'el, Elyon. And you'll note the L, or the Lamed character, as a prefix to the title L, which in this case is just signifying for God. Le'el, for God. And then Most High, Elyon. Okay. Now the compound, of course, is Elyon. So we're looking at a two-part title. The first part being El, the second part being Elyon. And so the compound of this is Elyon. Now the translation is God. And I have set this in a grouping of Le'el. And the reason that I'm grouping these together in that sense is that to show that El, when it stands alone, when it has a prefix, to maybe see some sort of pattern. Maybe so far I haven't seen too much of that, but this is just sort of to let the learner know, how it is actually occurring, So in this case, it shows up as Le'el. Okay. Now, my note is note the prefix le is translated of. Okay, in most cases, but in Hebrew, this should be me. So le should be translated as two or four. Okay. So what I'm saying basically is when they translated in the King James Version, they said of the Most High God. Probably a more accurate translation would be for the Most High God, or for God Most High. Okay, because if you want to translate it literally, it's Le'el, for God Most High. Okay. If you want to translate it, switch the Most High first, you would say for the Most High God. It doesn't change the meaning, but in some cases it's good to stick with the literal translation as it's laid out, and in other cases, based on the context, we need to translate or paraphrase, in other words, to convey the meaning in English. And in some cases, it doesn't change the meaning even when you have it literal as opposed to paraphrases. In this case, they're saying that he was the priest of the Most High God. They again, they're using of instead of for. In Hebrew, of would be me'el. But I guess, the meaning, of course, when we're paraphrasing, we're saying of the Most High God. But I think for God Most High conveys a little bit of a direct meaning, like more of a direct meaning. So there's that. That's the first verse that we're going over here. And also what I want to get into eventually too is I've gone ahead and I've grouped these, and here's a pivot table of the different groupings I've come up with. And this grouping is by no means set in stone. I mean, I could possibly break this down a little bit differently, but as of right now, here's my groupings, and you could see like Le'el. I have 3 occurrences of that, so on and so forth. And then I also have the book count of El occurrences in each book of the Bible, and also translation usages and how it's used. So this is a little bit more extensive, but as I'm getting into more of the analysis as I go along, I'll probably have a little bit more useful of information here. So now let me just make sure I look at my time here so that I don't go over. So now let's go on to Genesis 14:19. Incidentally, these first occurrences of El, are all within that first story of chapter 14 of Genesis. 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 4 occurrences are regarding Abram's interaction with the king Melchizedek. And so those first 4 occurrences are all of Elyon. The first 2 are Le'el Elyon, and the second 2 are El Elyon. So the second occurrence in verse 19 is, and he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth." And again, it's pretty much the same occurrence as in verse 18. Le'el Elyon. And again, I make the same note that this would probably be more accurately translated for God Most High. The compound, again, is Elyon. The translation of El in this case is of God in the capital G sense, God. The grouping is Le'el. And the same note I have here in regard to the use of Le being translated as for. So verse 20 of chapter 14, and blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand, and he gave them tithes of all. And we have El Elyon, translation, God Most High. Compound, Elyon, translation, God with capital G. Grouping is just El. Okay, I have no note on that one. Now, chapter 14, verse 22 of Genesis. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth. And again, we have the title, El Elyon, translated, God Most High. But in this verse, we also have the occurrence of the name of God, which is Yud-He Vav-He. And so we have what is what we're equating Yud-He Vav-He with the Most High God. So in Genesis chapter 14, verse 22, Abram said to the king of Sodom, I lift up my hand unto the Lord, capital Lord. This is the name, the tetragrammaton, Yud-He Vav-He. And who is the Lord? The Lord is El Elyon, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth. Okay? So this one is similar to the ones above. The compound is Elyon. translation of El is God, capital G, and the grouping is El. Now, you'll note I put in my little notes here. If you want to translate it with the names of the titles of God, it's Abraham is saying, I lift up my hand to Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, El Elyon. Okay? So there's this equating of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh with El Elyon. All right, now that concludes the first four occurrences of El in the Jewish scriptures in the book of Genesis. Next we'll be moving on to chapter 16. But one of the first things that I just wanted to point out is that the title El Elyon is just that. It's just a title. It's not a name in the Hebrew scriptures, but the name of the Lord is Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, as we're seeing in verse 22. And who is Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh? Well, he is El Elyon. Okay? So that's pretty much the first takeaway that I'm going to be bringing up in this video. And that's pretty much what's the rest of this series is going to be about, is talking about how all of these titles of God are basically set in equal standing to each other. They're used they're used in place of one another, so they mean the same things. So, you know, one of the big things about those that would hold on to this Canaanite borrowing idea is that they say that the name El, you know, that this is the name of God. Well, the name of God is Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. How we pronounce that, I'm not going to be getting into this video. And of course, it's just a huge area of speculation amongst a lot of people right now, and there's a lot being said about it. Ultimately, it's more about the character of the Lord, and the character of the Lord is expressed in His name, which is spelled Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. Okay, so the whole argument about the Hebrews, you know, borrowing the name El from the Canaanites is based on a speculation, which I discuss in my other videos, but we will continue to discuss. But the point of this series is really just to show you for sure and just like set aside all questions in one's mind as to how this title El is actually used in the Hebrew scriptures. And so with that, I will go ahead and cut this video short by 2 minutes, or actually a minute. And I'm going to say, God bless everyone. Keep seeking truth. Peace be with you all. Shalom, shalom. And God bless you all in Yeshua's name. Amen. I look forward to my next video.